Hello, friends, comrades, and interested others. I'm back with another video in the Advice for New Community Organizers series, but before we get into it, I just want to take care of a couple housekeeping items. So first, you may notice that my handle has changed from Circle A Tattoo to SadLord777. That's something that I've been planning to do for a while. I wasn't really feeling the Circle A Tattoo vibe anymore, and that is matching my Instagram handle that I've had for like ever. So don't forget who I am spontaneously. My Patreon is still Circle A Tattoo, and I'm pretty sure my YouTube URL is still Circle A Tattoo. That might change soon. But yeah, we're in a transition period handle-wise, and I hope that you will stick with me through that process. Tip number 1 of the day is Skillshare and knowledge share. There is a big problem in movements a lot of the time where one person or a couple people in an organization or a community space or something like that have a very important skill that is very necessary for the entire operation of that organization. And that kind of like kettling of, I don't know if kettling's the right word, but like that like constraint of knowledge can be extremely detrimental to movements and organizations, because then if something happens to you or the person who has that skill or knowledge point, or they get sick or they drop out of the organization, then the organization becomes essentially non-functional. And that has happened so many times and is like a pretty persistent issue in organizing. And so my advice is that if you have any skills that are like necessary to the function of an organization, be that administrative skills, which are extremely important, things like volunteer coordinating and scheduling, and you know, if you know how to be a secretary in a meeting and you're one of the only people that knows how to be a secretary in a meeting, if you have graphic design skills, if you know how to like write a press release, like I don't know, if you're like in a food serve and you're the only person that has their food handlers or something like that, make a point of sharing that skill. And that can be either informally through, you know, pulling people aside and showing them how to do it, or I actually prefer to do it more formally, where you're like, this is a day, set a date and time, I'm going to teach you guys how to do a thing, and disseminate that skill to as many people as possible. Because that is really how we build like the movement resiliency, where you're making your org last longer than any of the individual people in it, which is what we all have to be striving for, because like the changeover of individuals is going to happen inevitably, and you want to be building structures that last longer than that and are not dependent on one or two individual people for their longevity. So be very wary of any situation in which there's only one or two people who hold an essential skill or an essential set of knowledge, and make a point, like build it into the structure even, that you have regular Skillshare sessions. Even me making these videos, to be honest, is like kind of my form of like skill sharing, because I have this kind of like experience and insight to a certain degree, I guess, and I want to disseminate that knowledge. I don't want to just be like holding that in myself. So, and also like if you see other people who know how to do something that you don't know how to do, like ask them to teach you. Like make sure that you're also like accumulating skills that you don't have, as well as sharing the skills that you do have. Tip number 2 is do not glorify arrest or violent conflict. And this is a really important point, especially speaking from my experience in the anti-fascist movement, that a lot of people, especially very young, very new organizers and activists, have said things to me like, I can't wait to get arrested. And I'm like, whoa, like we need to like put a stop to that and like address that issue, because arrest is an extremely serious thing that needs to be taken into its like full consideration. And so I just wanted to like say some things about that. So again, this is also not to say that arrest is not necessary sometimes, but to get arrested, like that gives you a permanent criminal record. So that's going to make it difficult, if not impossible, for you to cross the border or travel internationally, which may not be important to you if you're pretty grounded in the place where you live. But if you are an immigrant, if you have family in another country that you regularly see, that can really affect your ability to travel. Also, arrests consume movement resources, and that's actually like the primary point that I wanted to make, is that when you are arrested, if you're getting arrested with movement support where you have lawyers on standby or people who can crowdfund for your legal fees, that is taking resources out of the movement, that people are having to help you pay for your legal fees. Like lawyers are having to help you, people are going to have to do jail support for you. And it can be an extremely traumatizing situation too. Like you can be stripped and searched by police officers. Like being in a jail cell is not fun. I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I am speaking from the experience of some of my close friends. That being arrested is not something that you want to pursue. If you are involved in frontline organizing that is anti-capitalist, anti-state, climate justice, indigenous solidarity, anti-racism, you may wind up experiencing an arrest at some point in your movement career life, but don't go out of your way and like seek arrest for the purpose of like validating yourself as an activist or seeing it as some sort of like notch on a belt, because it's not, and it can actually really seriously impact your life. That being said, you know, if you are someone who is acting in allyship, for sure, understand that it should be your role to take an arrest before a more vulnerable person does. So if you are acting, you know, as an ally to indigenous communities or something like that, then yes, it is safer and preferable for a white person or like a settler ally to get arrested before an indigenous person has to get arrested. So that needs to be like factored in as well. I'm not just saying like don't get arrested under any circumstances, but I'm saying definitely do not seek out or pursue arrest. And if you can do things in a way where you are organizing in the long term and avoiding any kind of legal repercussions, that is preferable, because it's also about your longevity in the movement. Like arrests, not even just for their legal or logistical concerns, but also for their mental health concerns. Like I said, they can be extremely traumatizing, and the long-term mental health impact that it can have on people who have sustained multiple arrests or multiple conflicts with police or law enforcement, like that can really affect your longevity in the movement. That can lead to burnout, that can lead to all sorts of mental health issues. So just take those things into consideration. That again, I'm not saying don't get arrested under any circumstances. I'm not saying don't show up as an ally, you know, to protect Black or Indigenous or racialized communities, but I am just saying, again, just don't seek it out and do take it seriously. Tip number 3 is be mindful of your privacy. And so this goes for online, this goes for real life. A lot of people kind of don't take their privacy online very seriously because they're just like, well, the feds are all over the place and all of my friends are posting memes about illegal things and like I think it's just fine or whatever. But the thing is that even memes that you post, like if you post a meme about something illegal or something that's like a federal offense, that can come up in court. Like if you get arrested for something years down the line, they will go through your social media and pull up like jokes that you made. Like anything that you post on social media, like you should not post something on social media that you wouldn't feel comfortable coming up in a court case, basically. If you're involved in like frontline activism, and even if you're not, you can get roped into things that you didn't even really participate in. Like you really need to be thinking of that, because there is huge legal suppression efforts against leftists and activists right now in Canada, in the United States, and pretty much everywhere around the world. So even if you're like, oh, I'm not doing anything serious, I'm not doing anything illegal, so I can like post whatever memes or jokes or things I want on my social media, that doesn't always matter either. Like even just for your participation in movements, you can be pulled into court. Like you don't know how that's going to work out down the road. So be very careful about the things that you post on social media. Don't post photos of, you know, what you look like at protests. Don't take pictures or videos at protests. Don't post pictures or videos at protests that don't have people's like faces blurred out. And don't have your Facebook profile on public. Please don't have your Facebook profile on public. Even public posts that you have, like even if you have your friends list private, people who like and like react to your public posts and comment on your public posts, it can be assumed that those people are on your friends list. So it's not even just about protecting your own privacy, it's about protecting the privacy of everyone in your social circle. Like I have my Facebook profile set up in a way that I don't use my actual name on my Facebook profile. I have basically my cover image and my profile picture that are current public, and then even all of my profile pictures and cover images that are not the current one, I go back and change their settings to private. So I have like very little that is public on my Facebook. And even that, like, you know, whoever liked your current profile picture or whatever. And you can also like avoid liking people's profile pictures or avoid liking people's cover images, so that you're not like associating yourself with anyone in like a public way. You know, like I don't know, like on my Instagram and stuff like that, I am a bit more like open about things, I guess, because I consider that and my Twitter and my YouTube as kind of part of my public presence. But that being said, I don't post anything that indicates my location. I don't post anything that would be illegal or suspect. If it like came up in a legal context, like I am careful about how I watch my social media these days, and you should be too. And then that being said, not even for just the online portion, but also in real life, my biggest thing to people is do not brag. Like whatever you do, whatever protests you're going to, whatever like organization stuff you're involved in, if it's not public facing, don't brag about it and don't be talking about it. And even if it is public facing and you think that it's kind of mild, like I don't know, like I'm more publicly open about some of the organizing that I do than I maybe even should be, but don't like even things that are like legal and are nonviolent and things like that. If you're involved in like anti-pipeline activism, if you're involved in Indigenous solidarity, if you're involved in some anti-racist stuff, like that kind of stuff can put you on a watch list even if you're not doing anything illegal. So you know, we need to take this current political climate of repression very seriously. So don't be super open about the actions that you're doing. Don't brag to people about things that you've done. And because like bragging does more to destroy movements than like practically anything. That's not true. But in terms of privacy, bragging is a serious privacy concern. So now that I have sufficiently ranted about that, tip number 4 is take care of yourself. And this is also something that's a very big problem, I feel, in movement spaces, that it's very common for activists to have a martyr complex. And I'm speaking about that from a place of self-reflection as well. I have been known to have a martyr complex in my history in activism, where you kind of just, you want to be exerting yourself to your fullest capacity at all times, and you never want to say no to anyone, and you want to be involved in 15 different things at once, and you want to be, you know, a valuable contributing member to as many aspects of the movement as you possibly can, and you don't want to take breaks. You don't want to be watching movies and reading fiction novels and you know, going for leisurely strolls or playing video games or things like that. Like when you get really into it, it can be very easy to kind of sacrifice all pleasure activities because, like, at least speaking from my own perspective, like I feel like I went through a real phase where it was like any time that I wasn't doing movement work, I should be at least educating myself. So any reading that I do should be theory. And you know, any time that I'm spending on the internet should be movement related somehow. And I felt very guilty actually for a time that I spent doing things that were just pleasure related. Like I spent years, like I like playing video games actually. My favorite video game series is Dark Souls, and because I'm addicted to cortisol. I love being stressed. But I went through a period where I didn't play video games for maybe 2 or 3 years because I just mentally couldn't justify to myself spending hours doing something that I liked to do that I didn't perceive as benefiting anyone. And so that is an extremely dangerous trap to fall into, again, when we're talking about movement sustainability and long-term participation in movements. That it's not a race, it's a marathon, or it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so it is much better. Something that actually my priest told me a while ago, this was kind of in a religious context of like obligation to God and stuff like that, but I think that it can be very much reframed towards movement participation as well. You know, we all want to be able to like give our lives, but it is better to give an entire life. Like, it is better to be working sustainably every day, or, you know, every week, every month, every year, for an entire, you know, 70 or 80-year life, if we're lucky, than to work our asses off until we're 30 or 25 and then just be so burnt out we drop out of the movement. And that happens so often. And so do not get into this mindset where you can't take time for yourself, where you can't step back, where you can't take a bubble bath or play video games or do something just because you want to do it. That is extremely important for maintaining your mental health. And remember also that self-care is not just the fun things. Like, self-care is, you know, bubble baths and desserts and, I don't know, singing and playing video games and doing hobbies. And there's a lovely chickadee right outside my window. And looking at birds. And it's all those things, but self-care, the thing that I would want to emphasize about it too is it's like the logistical things too. Like, self-care is having a bedtime. Self-care is going to therapy. Self-care is eating breakfast. Self-care is exercising. It's meditating. It's, you know, developing a spiritual practice. Like, self-care is like not letting your obligations to yourself slip, when you're like feeling kind of like pressured, like by movement or activist stuff or other obligations. Like, the biggest self-care thing, and the thing that like affects your sustainability, is to have routines that you don't compromise on. So, you know, no matter what, I'm going to bed by midnight. No matter what, I'm eating breakfast in the morning. No matter what, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes in the morning. Honestly, meditation, like, for all of you young activists and organizers out there, the biggest point that I can say for self-care is eat breakfast and meditate. Like, really develop a meditation practice that will be extremely helpful for your mental health. And your mental health is something that you need to take care of if you want to be involved in the movement long term. It's not just physical burnout. Mental health burnout is so real. And so, yeah, take care of yourself, do the fun things, do the pleasure things, but also do the real things of going to bed, eating breakfast, you know, to the extent that you're able to. I'm also not here to judge anybody and be like, oh, you're eating a bunch of junk food and are mentally ill, screw you, because we've all been there. But I just mean, to the best of your ability, like, try to make it a priority to eat relatively healthy and stay hydrated and do things like that for yourself, because you are only as useful to other people and to the movement as you are, like, healthy in yourself. You know what I mean? Whatever that means to you, whatever health and wellness means to you. But you know, it's kind of like a put on your own oxygen mask for a situation. Like, if you are spiraling out and having a mental health episode, or very physically unwell, based on your normal of wellness, then you're not gonna be a lot of help to other people. You know what I mean? Like, you do have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of other people. And our last tip of the day, tip number 5, is avoid the echo chamber. And so, well, I'm saying all this stuff, and I'm saying about, you know, things that we need to be doing within movements and within leftist spaces and within organizing spaces. I also don't want you to become so isolated in your organizing space or your leftist community, or, you know, queer community or radical social spaces in some way, that you can't interact with other people, or you don't, like, you just become, like, so uncomfortable in any social space that's not explicitly leftist that you can't organize with those people or have meaningful conversations. And you also just, like, don't even know what's going on outside of your own social space, which is another real risk. And so, while obviously, like, our sustaining and our nourishing relationships are going to be coming from people who have similar politics and similar values to us. And it's okay for those to be all of your like closest relationships. But don't close yourself off entirely to people who are not leftists, because like it's important to remember that the real struggle when it comes down to it is not a right-left struggle. It's a capitalist worker struggle. And that applies across races as well. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, people of color need to be able to like socialize and feel comfortable in the presence of conservative white people. But, you know, there are also like conservative people of color. And so try not to focus on the leftist conservative thing as much as you're focusing on like the power dynamics and people's social positions. And so as a leftist, like, you should never be so entrenched in the leftist scene, I guess, that you can't talk to working people, like working class people who are not leftist. You need to be able to talk to people who are conservative. You need to be able to talk to people who are liberal or centrist or whatever and explain your position to them and get them on side. And so, and also just like keep an eye on things as well. Like, a lot of the time leftists don't even know what the rhetoric is, like don't even know what's being said in conservative spaces or even like alt-right, like far-right spaces. And so, you know, keep an ear to the ground, keep an eye on things. Like, don't just be like, oh, I'm off in my leftist space, everything's fine. People, like, all respect my identities and I feel affirmed and safe and good. Because the thing is that, yes, feeling safe and good is great, but this is also kind of why, and I hate to say this, but like not everybody is meant to be an organizer. I don't know. I hate to say that because I'm not trying to like undercut anyone specifically, but it's like if you are committing yourself to being a community organizer, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so if you are like, you have to be comfortable talking to people who disagree with your politics. You have to be comfortable to a certain degree, like talking and sharing space with people who may not respect your identity, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to organize with people and share space with people who don't respect my pronouns, and that sucks. And I'm not necessarily saying that's something that you have to do, but I'm just saying that if you are committed to organizing with working class people, that is gonna kind of be a part of it. And like, there is definitely like productive conversations that happen and mutual respect that is earned, and people learn things and change and grow, and it's great and it's beautiful. But if you're just like, I will not enter or organize in any space where people are not going to like respect every part of my identity and politics right off the bat when I set foot in the room, then you're not going to be like doing a lot of organizing that isn't just like intra-leftist. And the other thing too is that, like, especially as allies, like if you're a white person, like you kind of like don't have the privilege of like opting out of conversations about racism, you know what I mean? So like, it's one thing for a person of color to say it's not my job to educate you, because it's genuinely not their job to educate. But I'm saying that if you are like a working class white person who's a leftist, you do need to be able to have conversations with working class white people who are conservative, because you have more in common power wise than you have different, kind of, you know? And so yeah, like don't just opt out of conversations that make you uncomfortable. Don't opt out of conversations about racism with racist white people. Like, that's kind of like the role of allyship, is to be engaging in uncomfortable conversations. And so, yeah, really like take that into consideration when you're kind of like making decisions about blocking conservative relatives or cutting people out of your life. Like, it's okay if those relationships are not fruitful for you. It's okay if those relationships are not nourishing, and it's okay if you need to have a group of people around you who support you and see you and affirm you and, you know, can be healthy for you in that way. But as an organizer, not all of your interactions, not all of your relationships are going to be like that. And sometimes somebody needs you more than you need them. Like, sometimes somebody needs you to educate them, and you're not going to be getting anything from them. Like, you're not going to be getting affirmation or a positive experience back from them. But your job is just to like help them learn and grow and move to a different place. So yeah, just something to think about leftist echo chambers. And that concludes our tips for today. I am planning on making another video, so this might be a 4-part series. It might be longer than that if I think of more things to talk about, but I already have the points that I know that I'm going to make for the next video, so I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that this was informative and educational and engaging and fun, and yeah, just logistical things. My Patreon is really helpful to me right now because I am pretty much just like relying on Patreon and facilitation and stuff like that as my primary income right now. And so if you have money to contribute to my Patreon, I really appreciate that. I am also trying to move up low-key. I'm not committing to it, but I am trying to move up to doing videos twice a month, and so I hope that, you know, if you're enjoying my content and if you're getting something out of it, and if you have a couple bucks to spare, you can contribute to that, and that actually really helps me, and just like paying the bills and stuff. And if you want to make a one-time donation, I also have a PayPal link. I'm facilitating a Trans 101 webinar on January 14th. This is a webinar that I've been doing pretty much bi-monthly since COVID started, approximately bi-monthly. And so tickets are sliding scale. If you want to make it your New Year's resolution to educate yourself about different social movements and, you know, anti-oppression, then that maybe would be a good resource for you. Check it out. Recommend it to your friends. The other thing I want to say is that I'm pretty sure that I may have been shadow banned on YouTube and or Twitter, because I've had people tell me that it's like hard for them to find my videos online, or that I'm not coming up in their subscription feed. And so yeah, if you want to fight against the like potential repression of my political content on the internet, it honestly really helps me for people to like share my videos, and like, I hate to be the like, comment, subscribe, but like comment, subscribe helps me out a lot. I'm really, yeah, excited to be making more regular content, and I feel good about it, and I hope that all of you feel good about it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I'll see you again soon, and take care, and peace out.